I'm Chris from All Things Good and Nerdy, a proud member of the Good and Geek Network, just like the show you're listening to right now. The opinions expressed are those of the individual hosts. Make sure you check out all the other great podcasts at GonnaGeekNetwork.com and get ready because geekiness begins in 3, 2, 1.
And we're rolling in episode 140 of Better Podcasting. On this show, we arm you for success.
In this week's Better Podcasting download, we expose those arms as we try on our brand new Skype 8 NDI tank top and tell you how well it fits.
Better than a onesie. In this week's Better Podback, we get a nice note from a listener.
Finally, we have a series of updates on things we previously talked about. Lauren, start the show now.
Welcome to Better Podcasting, a show where we talk about podcast tips, tools, and best practices to help you succeed with your podcast. What makes us different? Well, just like you, we podcast purely out of the love and fun of it. Podcasting is our hobby, and we recognize that it's yours too. We always encourage your questions and feedback, and you can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com. Here's your host for the show, Stephen John Drew and Stargate Pioneer.
Welcome to a debut episode of Better Podcasting. I am Stephen John Drew, and with me, of course, is debuting the NDI Stargate Pioneer.
I think I feel a little bit different. It's a little bit clearer. I think I hear a little bit more Skype hiss in my ears. And this is Skype NDI.
Yes, that's right. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but we're giving it a try today. So those of you who haven't been following it, Skype did create add a feature called NDI, and we'll explain a little bit more about that later. Before we get to that, though, we got a whole bunch of fun stuff to talk about, including a How I Saved My Podcast story. This one is hot off the presses. This is one that we got from a listener. That's right. It's not a How I Could Have Saved My Podcast story. This is someone who actually did save their podcast. This comes from Jonathan Bloom. Should we play this, or should we just, roll over it and go like, oh, we teased it, now it's on next week?
No, I think we should actually roll it right now.
Actually put it into a circle and roll it around? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, but I mean, that's the only way to make pizza that I know of.
Okay.
Hey, SP and Steven, this is Jonathan Bloom of Weekly Awesome. Here's how I saved my podcast, or how I could have saved my... Oh, wait, hold on.
And here's how I saved the answer to how I could and did save my podcast. So Thursday night, I run the podcast Frazzlecast, and I stream it to Twitch, and everything was fine in my recording app. I used Audio Hijack. It said, hey, everything's great, except Twitch could not hear any of my bumpers, could not hear any of the music and sound effects. And they were saying, like, you sound very low. I'm like, my monitoring, I hear everything fine. My recording app's saying everything. I have Discord set to the high LPR 40 audio interface I use through Loopback. Everything is looking fine on my end. Turns out that week, Discord did an update to the Mac version of Discord, and for some strange reason, would not accept anything other than the default audio input on the system. So then after the show, I decided to check the audio settings for my computer, make the default my streaming aggregate device I send all my audio to for streams. Boom! Everything is great. I guess we're saying, hey, I can't hear you. I hear so much background noise of your fan. It's like, I've got a DBX 286, so a lot of my background noise is taken out. One thing I did to save the show was I did not stop the show. I was a few minutes off because I was trying to figure out a few things. We're already at 5 minutes past the show. We just need to go. So we went, and then when I was going to have something for editing, I did like what Steven did with editing. Steven, I said, hey, editor, put this here. I knew where to put it when I was editing. The recording sounded fine.
So there you go. There's a How I Saved My Podcast story. Got it working, sounding fine after realizing that things changed. And this is very, very relevant to today's episode. Yes, when software updates do happen, they absolutely can break your entire setup. It can change your configuration. It can show that your configuration is one way when it's actually another. And sometimes it just doesn't see your configuration. That is a little tease for the future of this episode.
Sometimes you mentioned, Jonathan, that you were 5 minutes in the show and you just needed to go. Well, yeah, that's true. I mean, if you got normal listeners that are expecting a certain start time, yeah, that's true. But I will say, if it's not like hundreds of thousands of listeners, tens of thousands, even thousands of listeners, I think you're okay with taking a deep breath, taking a moment and just taking stock of everything and then saying, I need to think this through, just think it through really quick and then go, okay, we can start, and just calmly start the show at that point in time. So it's fine to reset yourselves. We talked about resetting before, Stephen.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when Better Podcasting hits episode 150, it's going to be reset and it's going to be just a solo cast, just Steven.
Yeah, that's probably for the best.
Thank you for sending this. And if you have a How I Saved My Podcast story, please do send it to us. You can send us an audio clip. You can send us a video clip. You can even go ahead and hire carrier pigeons to send us a cassette. I don't have a cassette player, but I will get one if you send me your How I Saved My Podcast story by cassette.
I have a dual cassette deck that is actually piped into my soundboard. So yes, I could actually play it. So why don't you mail it to Steven and then he'll carrier pigeon it to me.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and talk about podcast success.
If you are checking out Better Podcasting, odds are you're trying to improve your podcast or yourself as a podcaster. And by extension, this means that you probably want to make your podcast a success. The question is, what is success with podcasting? Sure, there's a lot of podcast awards of various types, sizes, shapes on different continents. There's even a plethora of podcast circles that you might strive to be in, but ultimately, we think the answer to that question is open for a variety of interpretations, which is why we have asked the question.
So today we've prepared a variety of clips from a variety of podcasters of various levels answering what that question means to them. You can bet there's going to be a variety of answers. So let's go ahead and play some of these clips. Now, why we're doing this is because we've always talked before about how it's good to have podcasting goals. We think that it's important to know what success is to you, especially as a hobby podcaster. So we wanted to have these clips played for you today, talk a little bit about them, so hopefully they can help you determine what your goal of podcasting success might be for you individually. Let's kick it off with somebody named Bandrew. He has been a guest on the show before. Bandrew Says Podcast. You can check him out there, or the Podcastage YouTube channel. He has answered this question.
Hey, SJ and SP, how you guys doing? I'm doing well too. Thanks for asking. Very kind of you. Also, very kind of you to ask me what I think makes for a successful podcaster. And I will be upfront. I am sure you got very similar responses to this, but I'm going to say it anyways. Since I'm a hobby podcaster and since your show focuses on hobby podcasters, as long as you are having fun doing the research, having the conversations, recording, editing, and posting your podcast, then you are a successful podcaster if you're just doing it for a hobby. For instance, none of us started podcasting because we wanted to get rich and famous, mainly because we all know we're never going to be selected for the new and noteworthy chart on iTunes, which is the first step on the road to riches and fame. But rather, we just started podcasting because we're really passionate about the topics that we talk about, and we have a lot of fun with it. So as long as you are starting a podcast that you are passionate about, that you enjoy talking about, and that you would be happy doing if nobody was listening, I think you will be a successful podcaster, as lame and as hokey as that sounds. So thank you guys for asking me that question. I hope that gives a little bit of motivation to anybody who has a low listenership. We've all been there. We all go through it. But as long as you enjoy talking about what you're talking about, have fun with it, guys.
Thank you very much for that clip. That's a great answer. And also, if you're not familiar with Bandrew, he does a bunch of YouTube videos on the Podcastage YouTube channel. And today he is speaking on a microphone that I have not seen him speak on before. But SP, do you know what mic that was?
I do know what mic it is, but I want to give the chance to our listeners to comment on this final version of the YouTube video and see if you can guess what actual microphone he is using. So go to our YouTube channel. That is gonnageek.com. You will go to Better Podcasting episode number 140. You will go to the first clip. You will see Bandrew. You will see his microphone. And if you enter in the right one, I'll tell you what, I'll even throw in a prize. We'll put it like that. It will be a bit of Better Podcasting branded stuff.
Okay, so apparently there'll be a contest of some form with the people who successfully copy and paste the right answer.
That's right.
What's your thoughts on what Bandrew had to say?
Oh, he is barking up our tree left, right, and backwards. Fun, and be happy with it and be passionate about the topic. That's what we do with Better Podcasting. So he is akin to us. He is a like-minded dude, and I think that's great. But if it is successful, it's successful for us. Other people might not think so, but it is successful for us. So I like Bandrew. And by the way, Bandrew, we might or might not have received a lot of answers, but yours was a first. So we hadn't received any answers yet when yours came in.
Why do you think I put it there? That's right. You can pander to us. We'll absolutely play into it. But let's go to an audio clip that we've got now for those of you who are watching the video side of things from the one and only Chris Farrell. Chris is from the Gonna Geek Network. You can find him also on All Things Good and Nerdy, the GonnaGeek.com show, Underneath Your Bed, all those great places. So let's go ahead and hear from Chris.
Hey guys, it's Chris Farrell here from the official GonnaGeek.com show and a variety of other shows, including the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast, the Starling Tribune, and a bunch of other podcasts that have died off just due to time commitments and things like that. So Steven had mentioned that he and SP were looking for clips on Better Podcasting about what is success in regards to podcasting. And it's a good question. I think it varies a lot depending on who you ask. And I would love to be like, oh, success for me one day is quitting my day job, making all my money by podcasting and having fun chatting with my friends on the internet and sharing videos and being on video streams and things like that. But I'm afraid if I set that as my metric for success, rather, that I'd be disappointed. Not all of us can be like Tom Merritt, Justin Robert Young, Brian Brushwood, and folks like that who've been able to successfully transition into making a living being a podcaster. I'm jealous because it seems like fun, but then part of me knows that as much fun as it might be, it's also a lot of work to keep those communities going and things like that. So I have a lot of appreciation for what those guys do by turning podcasting into their business. So while part of me at first thought success would be quitting my day job, getting this great job, speaking to everyone on the internet, I don't think it is that as I stopped and thought about it. Success for me when it comes to podcasting, and this might sound simplistic to folks, is am I having fun? Is this it's a passion project? I'm a hobby podcaster. Is this something I'm having fun doing most of the time? Now, even hobbies, you're never going to enjoy something 100% of the time. But for me, as long as most of the time I'm having fun, be it waking up on Sunday mornings, getting ready to do a live stream with my friends, doing Monday night Gonna Geek shows, if it's fun, that's success for me. If I enjoy getting to hang out with my friends and talk about funny things on the internet and share it with folks who enjoy listening in or watching in live, that's success. I'm having fun. I think that's the key to success here. Anything else is just gravy for me. If for some reason I make a little coin on the side to pay off my server costs or to pay off my bandwidth costs for storage, that's great. But for me, as long as I'm having fun, I'm getting to hang out with my friends, that's the huge metric for success for me. So Steven SP, I'm really curious to hear what everyone else says. I'm hoping it's a lot more of the not lighthearted, but more of the emotional tie-in of I'm having fun doing it. I love doing this that people are saying, but if not, I can understand why people might have other opinions too. So guys, I'm Chris Farrell, and my metric for success in podcasting is having fun doing it and enjoying the people I'm doing it with. Thanks guys, and see you guys later. Bye.
You know, inferred in your answer, Chris, was building a community. So yes, you're having fun with your co-host, but you also talked about chatting back and forth with people in your live chat. That is community based. That's beyond the co-hosts of your podcast. So I just want to throw it in there. It's something that he didn't understand that he was saying maybe, but he definitely did. And I'm hungry. Gravy.
Okay, so one thing that I thought was really cool about Chris's clip was how he set it up by saying, sure, I'd love to quit my job and be able to be a podcaster, but I know there's a lot of work with that too. And I think that's a really important thing because a lot of people who do start out podcasting, they begin and they go, yes, I would love to be able to quit my job, but they forget that as soon as something that's fun becomes a business, there's a whole other level of stress and whatnot, because now it's your livelihood, it's your income. So absolutely, I think that some people are quick to say that that's the level of success that I want, is to be able to do that, but kind of realize that it almost ups the level, basically what you have to strive for to be successful. So I like your answer, Chris. Thank you very much for sending that. And yes, gravy is wonderful. Next up, let's hear from way across the planet. And let's hear from Heather Welsh.
Hey, SB and SJ, it's Heather. Thank you so much for asking me what success in podcasting means to me. For me, it's actually been about things that might seem really small, but the fact that I actually took an idea for a podcast I wanted to make and made it happen, that was probably my biggest success. I think that doing all of those little milestones that help you move forward onto the next part of that project are huge successes, and creating the idea, working through it, recording it, editing it, and hitting publish were amazing successes to me. Not only that, but then building a bit of confidence and getting more confident on the mic was a huge success. Every time that I'm able to learn something and apply it to the podcast and hear the improvement in either the content quality or the audio, huge successes. And then, it has allowed me to make new connections with other people, and those connections have been incredible. I've been able to join communities that I didn't know were there before, to learn from people, to be able to support them, but they've also supported me. And that's opened up doors for collaborations and just friendships, which are incredible. And that's a huge personal success. So I really enjoy what I do, and I love learning new things and being able to apply that. And for every episode that I release, that is a success. Not only that, but hearing back from people that they've listened and what they got out from it, that it's had an impact on them, that's just an extra bonus, really. That's incredible. So, yeah, I think success is whatever you want it to be. If it's whatever you want to measure in whatever shape or form, but the best success is one that's meaningful to you. And if those metrics of success are somebody else's ideals, then it's not going to feel like success. So, yeah, that is what success in podcasting means to me.
Thanks so much for sending that, Heather. Great clip. Lots of really, really good point there. I really liked Heather's point about how there's different little milestone successes, like how making new connections or even just getting published from the beginning. I think there's a lot of really good nuggets in there, and I like the idea of having those little milestones. And I think that that's an important part of having an ambition for podcasting.
Steven, you and I are so removed from when we started our podcast. Fanboy Buzz was about 10 years ago for you. Gonna Geek shortly after that. I did my first podcast 5 years ago. We don't have that new podcast smell anymore from our first podcast. Heather does. And she brought up a great point,
Yes.
which you actually pointed out as well. But I'm accentuating it because I think it is totally valuable. Just having the success of putting your show together, putting that website together, because she does do her own website, and then publishing her podcast, and then doing her own podcast for the first year, going through all that strife just on her own. She doesn't have anybody else with her. That is a success to her. And on top of that, she lives out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's New Zealand. I mean, how far out in the nowhere can you get from that? And she loves collaborating with everybody else, both in New Zealand and Australia and the rest of the world too. So that is a success for her, and I completely appreciate it. It's kind of the reverse of building a community. She wants to become parts of community. Now, she has her own community with Sunshine and Power Cuts, but she has joined so many other communities too. That is great. So she's got that camaraderie, that friendship, and she's got a great podcast too. I love it. I've even guest hosted on it once. Thank you, Heather.
Well, let's go ahead and go up back to another audio clip. And of course, we don't want to start any, country wars or rivalries or anything like that. So we better play things even and go over to Josh Liston.
Hey, Stephen. Hey, SB. Josh here from On the Bubble podcast, gigs.link/onthebubble. I'm just answering your question, what is success in podcasting? When I first heard this question, to be honest, I was a little bit stumped, and I thought, do I actually have anything to add to that conversation? And the other side of that was, have I even ever thought about that myself? So I did spend a bit of time thinking about it. There's two elements for me personally that constitute success in podcasting. Firstly, and somewhat selfishly, I guess, success for me in podcasting intrinsically is when I can listen back to an episode that I've created or several episodes of On the Bubble I've created and think to myself, you know what? That's actually not too bad. I'd probably listen to that podcast if someone else made that. So I guess you could file that under creative satisfaction. But I think you guys might also be looking for what are maybe the extrinsic successes that your audience is chasing or looking for or desiring. And for me, that's actually always been an easier question. When I receive feedback from my listeners and they tell me that not only do they enjoy the show, but they really appreciate the amount of work that I've put into the research, the production, and the overall quality of the show, that to me is a good sign that I didn't steal a portion of that person's life and force them to listen to something that wasn't worth their while. So that's my definition of success. If I put enough work into the quality, hopefully people find it valuable and not a complete waste of their time, which this little audio is probably becoming for everyone listening. So I'll tune out now. Thanks, guys, and take care, better podcasters.
We're so fortunate to have Josh Liston as part of the Gonna Geek Network. I'm really thrilled about having him on any one of his shows. He does On the Bubble with us, which is great. And he brings up a great point, and I'll phrase it in terms of the TV shows that he probably talks about, in that they are valuable for some people to actually watch because they create fan campaigns to try to save the show and bring it back. Well, there are some TV shows out there which, quite frankly, aren't worth the time that people put into watching them. And podcasts are the same ilk. You don't want to have that podcast that is a waste of time for the person that is listening to it. Eventually they'll vote for with their ears and they'll not listen to you at all, but you have to crank out that great content and then be able to do that and have somebody listen to that. That is the success that Josh is talking about. And that's the success that I strive for in my podcast as well. Stephen, what do you think about all that?
No, I agree. I think you nailed it. And Josh, I got to say, I always really like your humor. It's always fun to hear on your show elsewhere, and it was nice to see that in the clip as well, and I know that there's many people who are enjoying it as well. So Josh, thanks for sending that in. Now let's head back to this side of the world and head to New York. This is live, like absolutely 100% not pre-recorded at all, to Suncast. There's no pre-recording.
Hello, Stephen and SP. So you guys asked me a question. What is success in podcasting? Well, that's an easy one to answer. And I'm going to go by Andrew Zarian's answer to success in podcasting. The answer to that is to have enough money that you can tell everybody else to F off. Yes, that is the definition of success according to Andrew Zarian. Being able to tell somebody that you have so much money that you can just tell them to F off. No, but really, I think defining success in podcasting has a number of different ways you can measure success. It could be just what you get out of it. It could be how many listeners you have. It could be just whatever it is that you are really looking for in terms of podcasting. And I think that's something that's unique about podcasting, is that, in a way, success can mean many different things. It doesn't necessarily mean making money from podcasting. It doesn't necessarily mean having 20,000 listeners for your podcast. It could be whatever it is that you want to get out of podcasting, whether that's just you enjoy doing it as a hobby and you got, a little bit of an audience there. And I think that's really what you should measure success as, in terms of not necessarily how many listeners you have or how much money you get from making the podcast, but your listener engagement. I mean, are you making other people happy? Do you enjoy what you're doing? I think that's the best way to define podcast. I think that's the best way to define success in podcasting.
Suncast, thank you very much for sending that. And now we know what the mantra is over at GFQ Network.
I'm not surprised. I mean, Andrew Zarian owns his own network, the guys from Queen's Network. And yeah, I could see him wanting to do that. I know a lot of people carry $100 bills in their wallets just to make sure that they know that they have money when they go around. I mean, money is success to some people, and personal freedom is more importantly success to some people. But, joking aside, as Suncast said, is that you definitely want to get out of podcasting what you want out of it. You want to have fun, you want to have personal satisfaction, and it depends on what you make it, and which is why we asked the question, but Suncast also knows that as well. So thank you very much, Suncast. I really appreciate your answer, as well as, once again, audio listener, you need to go to the YouTube channel and you need to go to Suncast's clip and you need to look behind him and you need to look at what wonderful monument is on his wall.
Absolutely. It's an amazing, horrible monument, but you can check that out on the video side of things at betterpodcasting.com/140. Let's head back to the audio side of things and hear from Anthony Bachman.
Hello, this is Anthony from All Things Good and Nerdy on the Good and Geek Podcast Network, and my thoughts on success in podcasting. I think it breaks down to 3 levels. At the top, you've got, the name brand, celebrity. They're going into it knowing that they're going to have sponsors, they're going to make money, they're going to have so many subscribers, they're going to be paid to do it. Michael Rosenbaum, Mark Maron, what he does with his show now, stuff like that. Like, that's the top level. That would be, number 3. Highly successful. Number 2, I would say, is where you've maybe gotten your repeat listeners, couple of followers that are really into the show, maybe a sponsor, maybe a Patreon, something where you're getting enough money to where you're covering the costs, so that putting your podcast up, weekly, daily, monthly, however you do it, is paying for itself and it's not actually costing you money. Like, that would be, I think that would be ranked number 2 for success. And then, the base one for success, I think, is ranked number 1 would be where I think most of us are as podcasters, where you have, hopefully return listeners and you enjoy what you do. And so as long as you're having fun doing it and people come back to listen to your opinion on whatever, every week or every month, and you want to continue doing it, I think that's success. So yeah, for me, I think All Things Good and Nerdy is a successful podcast. The 4 of us go live 9 a.m. Mountain Time every Sunday morning, and I think we have fun and we have repeat listeners in our chat room that seem to enjoy it. So to me, I think that's a successful podcast, but it's all varying levels.
Anthony, thanks so much for sending that in there. I like how you have different tiers in your definition. I think that that's a really neat way to look at it. And I agree. And that's sort of what I was referring to earlier when I was saying, when you end up making podcasting your business, you almost have to adjust what you classify as success. And I think that that's a very good way to break it down. And I really like your information. And yes, All Things Good and Nerdy is a success. They have been going for a solid 20 episodes now.
20 there's like 400 episodes or close to it. Anthony, thank you very much for sending that clip in, and thank you for phrasing your answer in different layers, because I'm hungry. I'm going to call it a 3-layer cake. On the bottom, it's the layer of being happy, being joyous, getting all that good, delicious cake in and enjoying the community, sharing it with friends, having a good time. The next level up is you have some success with your listeners. I mean, you're sharing more cake with other people, and that makes your pile of cake bigger. And the third layer of cake, the really creme de la creme, is actually getting paid to do it. But you say that each layer is actually the same and not one is better than the other, because it's the same cake. It's just depending on what layer it's at. So, Anthony, that's great. I'm hungry, by the way, and that cake analogy, that layer analogy was really good for me. And I enjoy the way you phrased it.
Just going to go ahead and click the button.
Hi, Stephen and SP. This is Jeremy from the Transmissions Podcast. And you guys asked what defines success in podcasting. And as Dave Jackson likes to say, it depends. I can define it in a few respects. From a show level, I mean, you have your downloads, and in my case, we also have a Patreon. And as I see those numbers go up, that helps me know that we're doing the right thing and that can be successful. But really, on the show level, what I can define as successful is our community. We use Discord on transmissions, and we have built up quite the community with our audience and interact with them throughout the week. Not even on show topics. We have some channels for off-topic things, and just getting to know the audience and them getting to know us on a more personal level than just listening to us every week has been a great experience. And I really think that is what defines success. I mean, if you look at a lot of the bigger shows, like say the Tom Merritts of the world, they're always promoting things like their Discord, their Slack, their chat rooms, whatever. And I think that building up a community around your show is really what can help define success. If you're basically just talking into a vacuum and you never hear back from your audience, you may have download numbers, but those are just numbers. They're not actual people. Whereas if you have the community, you're interacting, you're talking to people that even if it's just someone in a chat room, it's better than just a number. On a personal level, I turned 40 a couple weeks ago, and like many milestone birthdays, this one had me feeling kind of down. And my wife got the idea to make this audio file with people from our family wishing me happy birthday and saying some good wishes. And she contacted my co-host on Transmissions to see if they could help. And what they sent back was not only them wishing me happy birthday and telling me what I meant to them, they got other podcasters in the Transformers podcasting genre. It was them. And then they got a voice actor from the Transformers Beast Wars show, or Steven, you might know this as Beasties in Canada, and a ton of people that have worked on the Transformers comics that we've had on our show. And we know that many of them listen to the show, and it has just been so uplifting listening to these people just tell me how much they enjoy what we've done with the show and wishing me happy birthday and all, and just what I mean to them. That just made me feel so good. And beyond all the download numbers and everything, if I had to choose out of everything one thing that defines success, it would be that. Just knowing that I make other people happy when they listen to me, and then they return the favor and did something really nice for me. So that's really how I define success. And thanks again to both of you for everything you do with Better Podcasting and for all the help you've been to me over the years. You can find my podcast at transmissionspodcast.com. And thanks again.
Awesome. That's a great clip. And I got to say, my heart melted a little bit hearing that clip. I love the community story. I think it's so cool, so neat. Happy belated birthday, by the way. And really, what a cool thing coming together. And that, of course, is also a sign of a very embracive and a very supportive spouse.
That's right. Jeremy, just want to say happy birthday, just like Steven did. And 40, that's the big over the hill, right? So when you get to 50, trust me, when you get to 50, it's a little bit easier. You have a little bit more fun and you get on with life a little bit better. So there you go. Also, I just want to say, just wanted to tease, Jeremy and I are looking forward to a collaborative project in the near future between the two of us and somebody else. So stay tuned for more information on that. Jeremy, really looking forward to doing that with you.
Awesome. Well, let's hear from an audio clip from Digital Soup Podcast. There's 3 in 1 for this. So think of this as 3 different clips.
This just in, breaking news from the Digital Soup Podcast. A very special message.
That's right. Hi, guys. I'm usually Dave, and joining me, as always, is Adam and Jason here from the Digital Soup Podcast. And Steven and SP, Better Podcast listeners, Better Podcasting, I should say, you wanted to know a little bit about what success means to us as hobby podcasters. And I thought, let's talk a little bit about that. So, Jason or Adam, who wants to go first? Adam, you win. Okay, great.
Okay, all right. No, everybody jump up at once.
It was dramatic pause.
It was a pregnant pause.
I'd say for a hobby podcast, we're not driven by, a bottom line or dollars or anything. For me, honestly, it's, are we having fun? Are we actually, the success factors can be measured in a lot of different ways. But for me, mostly it's, am I getting personal satisfaction out of doing this? And of course, it's great to see an increase in numbers as far as listeners. So looking at your metrics and everything, and are we getting good reviews and things like that? What makes a successful podcast? I don't know. Is there ever any end to improving yourself or learning more stuff? Probably not. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just, am I enjoying it? And I absolutely am. I get to spend time with friends talking for hours about, stuff that interests me. And we get to share in that conversation with other people that are, listening in. And so that's kind of what it means to me.
Awesome.
Oh, that was so sweet.
Okay, screw you guys. You know what? Never mind.
All right, Jason, what is success to you?
All right. Well, I'm just, basically going to mirror a lot of the things that Adam just said because, that's the way I feel on it. We're not making any money. If we were actually making money, we'd base it on that, But I'm going to go one step further. You mentioned one little thing about numbers, but for me right now, because we don't have the money coming in, that is how I measure success. I'm not going to get all sappy like Adam and say, oh, I get to hang out with some buddies. My measure of success.
See, he doesn't even care.
Nah, I don't even know you guys' voices. The numbers. I mean, all three of us watch the numbers, and I know I check the numbers like 4 or 5 times a day because I want to see if they're, how they're increasing. But for me, that's obsessed. Yeah, exactly. That's how I'm measuring it currently. Is just by how many listeners we're getting. From the time that we actually post the episode to how long it takes us to hit 100. And, am I measuring 100 as, that equals success? No, but that's just a number. We were excited when we first hit it. And now I try to see how fast we can hit that 100 in the week.
Yeah, it's good to set those small personal goals, and for me, I'm gonna break this down to something really simple. Being we are a geeky, fun tech show, we love our dad jokes and we love some acronyms. So I came up with this because what success means to me, as far as our Digital Soup podcast, is just this: it is simple, unscripted, clever conversation every single show. And that is success if you look at the letters of that. But what I mean by that is that we can also call it FWF, or Fun with Friends, which includes our co-hosts and our listeners. Because most importantly for me is, like Adam said, it's kind of sappy and everything else. But if you're not having fun putting out a show and you're not enjoying spending time talking to your co-hosts or your friends, the listeners, interacting, whatever it might be, there's no point in doing your show. There's no fun element. There's no reason or motivation that's going to keep you going and keep you working on putting out the best possible show you can if you're really not enjoying it. So to me, that's what success is. I don't like anything to feel forced. I like it to be just what this is: 3 friends who are enjoying geeking out over a lot of different topics, wherever it takes them. A lot of laughter, a lot of joking around, and some great information. And I found I've actually learned quite a bit by, having to do show research and stuff like that. It kind of forces you back into that world to really keep tabs on things. And so just simple, unscripted conversation with friends. That's just a lot of fun hanging out. And of course, anytime we can get our listeners involved, we love that as well. So for that, I'm usually Dave with the Digital Soup Podcast. Thank you, Adam and Jason, for joining me. and for doing this for Stephen and SP from the Better Podcasting podcast crew. Hope you listeners have fun and realize that success isn't always about just the numbers, the dollar amounts, and everything else. And enjoy your day. Take care, guys. See you later.
Later podcasting better. I mean, better podcast, whatever the name of that show is.
Oh, thank you so much for sending that in. I love that clip. So good. So good. And yes, Digital Soup Podcast. You can find them on the Gonna Geek Network as well. As they say, the soup is on every week.
Yeah, and I love the variety of answers. There are 3 guys on the same show, and they all had 3 different things to say about success. Adam was all about the sentimentality of the relationships between the 3 of them. Jason was stats obsessed, as a lot of podcasters get, especially when they...
Stargate Pioneer.
Yeah, I haven't been as obsessed lately, but yes, in my past life, my past podcasting life, I have been obsessed about stats. And Dave, his success, which we have failed here on Better Podcasting, is they haven't fired each other. They're still together. So that's his success. Love the acronyms, by the way, Dave. You'd make a great rocket scientist. And Dave also mentioned making great content, and that is not to be underscored. They do make great content over there at Digital Soup. And my homage to Digital Soup, if you want to explain what the podcast is to somebody, I have a simple question to ask you, Stephen. What do you call a guy without any arms or legs that's hanging up on the wall?
Got nothing.
Art.
Love it. So let's go ahead and talk to an artist. And, well, we're going to hear from an artist. Rounding it up, it's Emily Prokop.
Hi, this is Emily Prokop from The Story Behind. And when I first started my podcast, it was actually my second after the first one folded. And I didn't have big plans for it. It was just meant to scratch that podcasting itch I had when the first one folded. And I learned so much from that first show. I loved learning about the space and learning about podcasting and the tech, and most importantly, meeting other podcasters. So when that ended, I needed something to fill that, and that's what The Story Behind did for me. So when I started it, I thought it was just going to be that one thing that was outside of my full-time job, and it was something that I could do that wasn't necessarily family related or home related. I could go downstairs to my basement and I could do something that I was so passionate about that was just for me. And I was really proud of everything I put out. So I felt like a success even just at the very beginning, starting. But then it grew. And I got to meet more podcasters. And I even had them come on my show and do guest voices. So now I could say, I've had Stargate Pioneer and Stephen Jondrew on my show. So that made me feel like a success. And then when people started joining my Facebook group I have for the show and posting their own trivia, and they got to know me as a host, and they started posting the song Africa by Toto because they knew it was my favorite. I mean, it's incredible to see that and to have that sort of interaction. And the fact that they're interacting with other people and passing trivia back and forth, I just love it. Now, a lot has happened in the year and a half since starting the show. Like, I was nominated for the Academy of Podcasters Awards in 2017 in the history category. And now I edit other people's podcasts for a living. And I got to leave my full-time job and stay home with my kids and my husband. And I was also pitched to write a book based on the podcast, which is so cool for me. But the thing that's most successful for me is when I get that one email or DM from a listener or a post on Facebook in the group saying, I loved your episode this week. I love this tiny bit of trivia that you mentioned, or I got to talk about this at the water cooler with my friends. That is success for me, is just that interaction, somebody reaching out saying that they heard my voice, they heard me say something, and it stuck in their brain, which is what trivia does for me anyway. So there's success for me. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks so much for sending that in, Emily. And I just got to say, you talked a little bit about how there's some other podcasters that you had them come do voices and whatnot, and then that was sort of success for you. Well, now we see your podcast as that. And in fact, I gotta say, every time I listen to an episode of your podcast, I just think to myself, it's gonna take a lot to take me away from you. And there's really nothing that 100 men or more could ever do to take me away from your podcast.
Emily, I love the story behind. Thank you very much for sending in that clip. I appreciate it as much as Steven does. And it is great to have your voice and your face and your camera looking at our show as well. And I like the progression that you said, but you started just by being passionate about podcasting, and you still are at the heart of everything. You're just passionate about your show. The story behind is your true love in life. I know you would love to bring back the classy little podcast, and that's just not going to happen, but you have the story behind, which I think is infinitely better. And I just love it. So that is a great, in the book deal. Oh my gosh. By the way, I just pre-ordered her book today. So I'm looking forward to that when it comes out in October 15th, actually 2017. So really looking forward to reading that.
So thanks to everybody who sent in those clips. We had a lot of great answers on success, and we'll just quickly go through here. SP and we'll fill in some of the extra things that we think about success that we want to go ahead and state. For me personally, I agree with a lot of what's been said. As a hobbyist, for me, the ultimate sign of success is that I'm having fun while also giving people quality content that they can enjoy. I want to note that this doesn't always mean that everybody just agrees with me, that I'm just everybody's person. No, success is engaging the audience to me. And even if they disagree with something that I say, but they reach out to me, I'm engaging them. I've made them think. I've made them make me think and have a little bit of a conversation. So that's a big part of success to me. Another part is feeling like I'm always advancing myself further. This is a huge element of me being a hobby podcaster, whether it's something complicated like reworking an entire audio setup so that I can make it work with a Zoom L12, or something that's supposed to be simpler like a brand new feature of a audio platform that rhymes with MIPE. I absolutely want to keep advancing myself, and that's a big part of success to me. If I went and just paid somebody a lot of money and said, hey, do a podcast for me, I'll talk into a microphone, you do the rest, that wouldn't be me advancing myself. And as a hobbyist, I want to grow. So that's a big part of me being success as a hobby podcaster. I want to just keep advancing myself, engage the community, and just have fun. SP, what about yourself?
Much like you, Steven, a lot of the same thoughts, but I want to speak to the Better Podcasting listener that might be new. And in case you are new, first of all, welcome. I know we're far into the show now, but thank you for checking out the show, and we hope you find it informational and inspirational in some cases as well, especially this episode. But in case you are new to Better Podcasting, just want to let you know, in case you don't know, that I do love keeping tabs on the podcast industry. And I keep track of the podcast industry because it is a passion project for me. You know, I am a podcast enthusiast, and I like to see how it is evolving over time. And it's also because I host this show, Better Podcasting, and I also keep track of the podcast industry to inform you, the listener. Now, there has been a ton of information flowing in 2017 and now in 2018 about the growing podcast industry. There is increased promotion budgets for corporate or broadcast shows that they advertise on Facebook. There's Overcast advertisements now on other podcasts, billboards for podcasts in great big cities, and so on and so forth. There is increased monetization of this space. Now, this is evident by like the IAB Podcast Measurement Guidelines 2.0 for advertisers. And as referenced in several of the clips before, there are more and more professional podcasters whose job is predominantly podcasting. You heard from one, Emily, actually, her job is podcast related, but also we have somebody on our network, Cody Goff, who is a full-time podcaster with Curiosity.com, in addition to his hobby podcasting. And there's another person that we know, Jim Collison, from the AverageGuy.tv network, and he also podcasts full-time over at Gallup for his professional show, and other people as well. I mean, different people were mentioned, Tom Merritt, I will mention Joe Rogan. There are people whose job is to podcast. Now, because of that, you might be feeling the pressure to have your show be like their show, be like a professional show. And this is why it's important for you to define the success for your show, because if you don't do those other comparisons to the other podcasters, because that will drive you mad. So that is why we did this show, to give you a grounding in reality for other passionate podcasters that are doing a hobby podcaster. Now, for me, I consider myself a hobby podcaster, just like Steven. I podcast for fun. I podcast on topics I find interesting, and I like to find like-minded people and possibly a community as well. I podcast because I like the tech. Like Steven mentioned the L12. I mean, I love my mixers. I love the microphones, that sort of thing. And I'm a rocket scientist, so of course I'm going to like the tech. So success for me is hanging out with my co-hosts. I do love that on all the shows that I do, whether it's Gonna Geek, Better Podcasting, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., Starling Tribune. I love laughing or learning something new, or both, really, and producing a quality product for my audience. I do like to get as best of the quality as I can out to the audience. I love helping others, which is the format of this show with Better Podcasting. And I like building communities if possible. And I just want to remind everybody that no one who got back to us said that success equals advertisement buys.
Oh, sorry, I got to amend mine. No, I'm just joking.
Yes, everybody mentioned money, but nobody gave specifics on actual, this is the amount of money that you need to make. These are the download numbers you need to have. This is the number of download numbers that your podcast episode needs to have. I mean, Digital Soup mentioned 100 or so, but that was just a success gate for them. Now, this is true in Better Podcasting because we're hobby podcasters, but these are all successful podcasters. They're all hobby successful podcasters, and you can be successful too. Just keep that in mind, that you define your success and you can be successful depending on how you define it. So in that light, Steven, I want to ask our listeners, how do you define success for your podcast? And please let us know. Get back to us on Twitter, send us an audio clip, send us a video clip. You can catch us on Twitter at BetterPod. You can catch us on our Facebook page, Better Podcasting, or you can send us an email, podcast@betterpodcasting.com, and we will play your answer on a future show.
Awesome. So thanks again to everybody who sent that in. And let's go ahead and talk about Skype. Should we do that?
I think we need to.
Or maybe we should just crash.
Welcome to this week's Better Podcasting Download.
All right, so here's the deal with Skype. For those of you who don't keep your finger on the pulse with Skype, a lot of podcasters do use Skype to still podcast with. Contrary to there being a plethora of problems, people do often still use Skype, including ourselves here. Now, Skype had a while ago, we talked about it, said that they were going to be implementing what's called NDI. It's essentially a feature, a standard that would allow video to come natively out of Skype and go into something like XSplit or OBS or vMix without having to do a capture. It's automatically supposed to send the stream out so that these pieces of software can go ahead and pick that up and end up putting that in. Well, this past Monday, guess what? Skype announced that they were going to be forcing everybody to head over to version 8, which they just dropped the new version out publicly. And so if you're using a previous version of Skype, if you're on Skype 7, guess what? It's not going to work as of September. You're going to have to upgrade to Skype Desktop 8. Now, I need to preface this and say that we're talking Skype Desktop 8, not the Skype app that is built into Windows 10. A lot of people believe that those are the same. No, the app is different than the desktop version. A lot of people thought that the old program, the desktop version, was abandoned. Well, they kind of backtracked on that, and they are still developing in that. And that's what we're talking about today. So, what was our first experiences using Skype firsthand? Well, number one, I went to try to use this on Monday. Stargate Pioneer was not on the GonnaGeek.com show, and we record this live on Mondays at 5:45 p.m. Pacific time. That's 8:45 p.m. Eastern at geeks.live. That's when we record the GonnaGeek.com show. And I thought, what a great opportunity to try this out. We got multiple hosts. It's my show that I like to do all this crazy switching and this video things. Let's go ahead and try that out. Well, I installed it, and then I had to roll back because I had no NDI feature showing up in my settings at that point. So I actually went to capture the usual windows the way that they were. Well, there was a couple of problems. Number one, it looks like Skype's now using what's called hardware acceleration. So if you're using a piece of software that does window captures on video side of things, and you can't use hardware acceleration, you're going to have a problem with this. So I had to roll back to version 7 to do the show on Monday. There's also some other overlay changes and whatnot as well, which aren't ideal for that. But guess what? Yesterday, our friend that you heard from earlier, Suncast, he said, look, there's an NDI feature, to which I promptly reinstalled 8, went in and said, hey, look, there is an NDI feature, to which I quickly went and started up a different account of mine and went, wait, no, there's no NDI feature. Well, guess what? It looks like NDI, this feature, is slowly rolling out to people. Some people were thinking you had to be part of Insider to see that. I can confirm that I've tried some accounts that are not signed up to the Insider program. They are seeing that. If you're not seeing the NDI feature yet, look, number 1, in the options under your profile. So click on your little profile icon in Skype, go to the options, because that is a separate set of options, go to calling, and then you should see an advanced bar. Or just search, go to betterpodcasting.com/140. We'll put a link in there on how to check this out. And yeah, NDI does seem to be rolling out to people. So we thought, let's try that out today on Better Podcasting. Give it a try. And SP, I'll turn it over to you to give your initial thoughts of how well it went.
Well, at first we had about a half an hour of not being able to connect with my video. So I took the opportunity to actually upgrade my Skype to version 8. I was using version 7, so I'm at 8 now, and it still wouldn't work. So I actually had to unplug my Logitech C920 and plug it back in order to get it to work at the end. I mean, that was the common denominator the last 3 or 4 times that we tried to get it working, and I had to do it. So actually having to do hardware changes in the setup where my computer is actually tucked away on the side of the desk was a little bit of an issue with me. Other than that, Steven bore the brunt of everything because I'm just sitting here as a dumb user today, but I did have to eventually upgrade to version 8, and it is where I'm at right now. So bye-bye version 7.
Yeah, I gotta say there's a lot of challenges that SP and I faced right off the bat here. From a Skype perspective and an NDI perspective. Right now, if you're watching the video side of things at betterpodcasting.com/140, I gotta say SPs look pretty sharp today. I don't know if they've increased the video quality or what they've done, but he does look pretty decent today. But we have had problems. We actually had it crash partway through the show. It got edited out of the final version, but yes, it did crash partway through. Setting things up, I've had a really mixed bag of getting NDI to work properly. When I did my test yesterday, I pulled out my phone. I did a little bit of a call with myself, and it showed up. And then all of a sudden, the capture just turned blue, and I couldn't get it back without just like randomly turning off video and turning it back on. And that's essentially the experience we had at the beginning of the show with SP, was we just kind of had to randomly try things to get it to work. Now, the interesting thing about this getting a little technical is there have been points where I have seen SP, there's a little preview window that often floats for Skype. I have seen him in that, but the NDI screen itself that I get pulled into XSplit is blue with the Skype watermark. Well, guess what? When this happened, we were able to fix it by having him on his end unplug his camera and plug it back in. So to me, it seems like maybe there's a communication situation going on, something that his computer is sending me, and I was trying my phone, so maybe that was the case. There's obviously going to be a big rough patch. To be perfectly honest, I'll likely just roll back to 7.5 or whatever I have. In the meantime, and just try this here and there with some other random tests, but overall, I need to see some of these bugs fixed, but if it works, it will make things a little bit simpler because 2 reasons. Number 1, if you have a Skype call with a bunch of participants, what it does is it gives you an individual video stream for every participant. So instead of before, if you were doing a video show and you wanted to be able to manually select different participants, you would have to have either layered Skypes or multiple Skype boxes to be able to capture each of those people individually full screen. Well, now with NDI, it's going to go ahead and let you have one capture per person in a group chat, which makes it a lot easier because it's just one call for everybody and essentially just pulling out those feeds individually. As well, if you do also do things over the network, what happens when you're running Skype? It's going to send that NDI stream available on your local network. I did a little bit of a test, and on my crummy little laptop that is super buffery, I was able to pull up Stargate Pioneer's NDI feed that he is sending me right now to my computer, and I'm getting it on my actual laptop. So that means that I'm able to actually pull his feed individually from another computer on the network, should I wish to do that. So really, I think it's a step in the right direction, but there's a whole bunch of problems still, I think, that they got to solve. And if you are reliant on the actual regular traditional capture, Skype 8 might let you down because there's some things that you can't hide. There's some placement of some items like the thumbnail back that might get in your way, plus the hardware acceleration. So hopefully with time, these bugs will get fixed or worked out. And if NDI just gets a little bit more stabilized, I'm totally cool with them making us broadcasters use NDI. I'm totally fine with that. I think that makes sense versus a capture method, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. Bottom line, I think that you should expect to have challenges if you're going to try this out now.
One last clarification is we've talked about the fact that both Stephen and I use a Logitech C920 and a C922. Right now, the only camera, and it's been this way all night, the only camera I've had plugged in to my computer is the Logitech C920. So there's been no confusion between the drivers. And just know that our listeners know that I have both cameras and only one has been plugged in the entire time.
And oh, by the way, we should mention, I kind of touched on it, there is a watermark embedded into that NDI stream. Not surprising considering the previous terms of service, and we'll leave it at that. But let's go ahead and hear what you had to say this week.
In this week's Better Pod Back, we got a short and sweet tweet back to us by Covert Nerd. That's at @thecovert_nerd. And the Covert Nerd said, good tips on ID3 tags, talking about Better Podcasting episode number 139. So I am glad that you enjoyed our really deep dive into the ID3 tags of the podcast MP3. So thank you.
Also, we did get some emails earlier this week. We're not going to go into all of them because we are a bit of a longer show today, but I want to say thanks to everybody, as per always, who reaches out to us and does get in touch with us through any of the ways, including Johnny Pennington. I'll give you your special shout out, Johnny. You've been emailing us a lot lately and back and forth with some things, and I know you've had a very busy life, so thank you very much for continuing to engage with us. And by the way, Johnny did find a deal on a Audio-Technica BP40 package, so those deals are out there should you want yourself a BP40. Before we wrap up, we had a few quick updates that we're just going to sort of fire through here that we wanted to touch on. We thought they were important things that we should mention on here, and I'll start us off. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is one that I reviewed back in episode 137, which you can find at betterpodcasting.com/137, Magix Movie Studio. I talked about Magix Movie Studio 15, and Magix Movie Studio is a editing software that SP and I both use. Now, during the review, we talked about how I had a pretty stable editing experience. SP, not so much. Well, we wanted to mention that the tables have turned, actually, and SP went away and he tried Magix Movie Studio 15 and edited successfully with no problems. I have had a couple of weird weeks with crashing and whatnot, and it kind of came out of nowhere. So is it my hardware? Did something die with that? Is it something else? Is it maybe the video file I was using? I don't know, but I wanted to at least mention that amendment on here because we're trying to make sure that everybody does get good advice from us. And 14 has been really rock solid for SP and I both, but 15, there's been some quirks. So hopefully that'll get updated. It's still early on, but I wanted to mention that. But moving on to the next point, SP, you had an update with Spreaker, right?
I did. A few episodes back, I mentioned that with the Google Podcast indexing the RSS feeds, that it was actually indexing the Gonna Geek Spreaker feed, which there's really only one show, and it's the live show in there, and we didn't really want that showing up. So I was wondering how we were going to do it in the future, and I was thinking, I'm going to have to give up my Spreaker account and my Spreaker live streaming, which I actually really enjoy their live streaming. That's why I still have the Spreaker account. You can have unlimited RSS feeds, but you're limited to 500 hours at $20 a month. And I really enjoy that ability because all of our shows are live streamed. Gonna Geek, Better Podcasting, Legends of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Starling Tribune, and I use it as such. Well, I had this brilliant idea through a conversation that Steven and I were having of, well, wait a minute. I could actually put in a 301 redirect into the RSS feeds on Spreaker to go to their main RSS feeds. And that's exactly what I did. It's pretty easy. You just go into the portal that they have for each show, and then there is a RSS button on each show. You click on that and you actually manually put in the 301 redirect forward. I guess a lot of people do it, and I just hadn't even thought about it. So if you do actually distribute your podcast to other places like SoundCloud or Anchor or something like that, just as a destination, because you think that all those great listens are out there and the discoverability is out there. Hint, they're not. But if you think so, then I would encourage you to actually put in that RSS redirect in the RSS feed. The episodes can still be there, but the RSS feed will point to your actual feed. And that's what I did with Spreaker, and I'm happy with it. And I'm going to stay with Spreaker.
And lastly, the update that we have has to do with Google Play Music. We talked about how Google Podcasts is a thing now and it's different than Google Play Music. Well, guess what? Lots of podcasters are seeing their directories not update on Google Play Music. So this is something that we've experienced on Better Podcasting. Our last couple episodes didn't go up to Google Play Music. We've seen many other people within the podcast community talk about this, and it's something we wanted to mention. So if you are seeing your podcast not updating Google Play Music, you're not alone. Give yourself a little hug. Pretend you're in SP's caress. Just smell his sweet, sweet shampoo and know that everything is okay. And you will know that probably Google Play Music is going to go away. Let's be honest. Google has been doing some weird things, but who knows? Maybe they're not. I shouldn't speculate like that, but I think it's going to happen.
It's a known issue. Both Libsyn and Google Play Podcasts, or Google, has been working the issue. So hopefully it'll get fixed. But yeah, I think Google Play Music is short. Google Play Podcast, whatever you want to call it, is short-lived indeed.
But there you go. That is the end of the episode. Thanks again to everybody who did participate. If you got something that you want to say, head on over to betterpodcasting.com. But for episode 140 of Better Podcasting, I'm Stephen John Drew saying I'm part of the Gonna Geek Network, and you should check out all of the awesome shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
And I am SP, and I'm saying I'm a success because I'm part of GonnaGeek.com. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.
That bar is really low.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Better Podcasting. We want to hear from you. You can find all of our contact information at betterpodcasting.com. If you like the show, please consider giving us a 5-star review in iTunes. We encourage you to check out all of the other geeky podcasts available at GonnaGeekNetwork.com. This has been a Gonna Geek production. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week.
Stephen, you and I are far removed from our initial podcast. You know, you with Fanboy Buzz or Gonna Geek, if you want to.
Oh, we crashed. What crashed? Hold on, if you can hear me. Oh, we lost Skype. Skype crashed. He closed it. Let's see here. Call disconnected. By the way, that hiss? Yeah, that's just Skype. That's just Skype, and I've rerouted him differently, so you can hear it a lot more this time because it's a clearer signal. Usually that Skype hiss is here, but yeah, part of it's the clarity. Here, everybody can hear live the new sounds. Boom, boom, boom. We'll dance together, everybody. Come on now. I should answer. This could be a problem. This might be a problem. We might not get NDI back. I might have to reinstall on the fly.
Okay.
Let's see here if it comes back.
Okay. Do you need to call me?
No. And yes, Suncast, we are using NDI.
I'm just seeing myself, by the way.
Yeah, I lost the NDI connection. Yeah, Suncast, by the way, what happened was basically Skype, the call crashed. Now I can't get his signal back. How did we fix this last time?
I can restart Skype.
Let's both restart Skype. And then
Okay.
if not, we might have to do a revision. We'll just try to fix this.
Okay. Bye.
All right, everybody. While we're live right now, we'll go ahead and I'll walk you through the play-by-play. Stephen John Drew goes ahead and he closes down the Skype window. He then proceeds to look for the Skype shortcut. He's looking for the Skype shortcut and he launches the Skype shortcut. He then waits for it to load because it takes a long time to log in now. He now goes into his calling options and then advanced on Skype, and then he shuts off NDI. And now he shuts down Skype again. And then what does he do next? He opens up Skype again. That's right. Steven's opening up Skype again. As Skype loads up, he waits again for it to log in. It's more painful the second time. He goes into calling. He hits advance. He turns on NDI and he sees that there's a message from SP saying that he's here. So what does he do? He dials Stargate Pioneer and he waits to see, will he answer? Will he answer? Oh, he does answer. He answers. Oh, great. We have the wonderful blue thing, but I don't see see his video.
I saw myself to begin with, and then I went away.
No, that wasn't you. That was frozen you from like 5 minutes ago.
Well, Emily said it looked great.
I think it was because you're like, I think that's what it was. But why don't you go ahead and I don't see your camera.
Unplugging.
Let's do your camera thing again. Let's do your camera thing again.
Do the camera thing.
Okay, so now in the background, you can hear Stargate Pioneer walking away from his microphone because he has to reach down between his legs. He's back the seat. Oh, what do we have? We have Stargate Pioneer back.
Am I back?
How did he fix it? He fixed it by unplugging his camera and plugging it back in from the 3-point line. Swish!
I actually had to lean back behind my desk to go do it.
I'm going to go ahead right now and give you a live exclusive. Can you mute the Spreaker feed, or do you mind if I just get a little potty mouth for a minute here?
Yeah, hold on. I can line out. There we go.
Okay.
It's muted.
Okay. For Skype, okay? What a train wreck. What a train wreck. Oh my.
Well, in Skype's defense, you wanted to be the first one to use it, so you're an early adopter. You knew there was going to be problems.
That's true. We're totally going back to 7 until September, but
can I plug the H6 back in?
All right, go ahead, plug it back in.
Okay. Spreaker, we're back with you.